The midday sun filtered through the pine branches as Logan Hartley and his 6-year-old daughter, Mia, explored the forest trail. A perfect father-daughter hike. Until Mia suddenly froze. Her head tilted to one side. "Daddy, someone's knocking," she whispered, pointing at a freshly disturbed patch of earth just off the trail. Under there, Logan listened. At first, nothing. Then, clearly, a rhythmic tapping coming from beneath the soil. They began to dig frantically, moving dirt with their hands until they uncovered the corner of a makeshift wooden box. Inside was a woman, very much alive, her elegant clothes barely soiled, her beautiful face flushed with fear and relief at being discovered so quickly. As Logan lifted her out, she clutched his hand and whispered with surprising strength, "I have no one. But if I die, the child will never know." Then she slumped against him, overwhelmed but conscious. Who was this woman? What child? Logan had no idea that from this moment, his life would change forever. Logan Hartley hadn't planned on raising a daughter alone. At 38, the tall, broad-shouldered forest ranger with perpetual stubble and kind eyes had once dreamed of a house full of children and a loving wife to share his passion for nature. That dream shattered 6 years ago when Emily, his high school sweetheart and wife of 10 years, died during childbirth complications, leaving him with their daughter Mia in a cabin full of memories at the edge of Pine Ridge Forest. The cabin, built mostly by Logan's own hands, stood as a testament to his self-reliance. Sturdy pine logs, a stone fireplace, and windows that captured the morning light filtering through the trees. Inside, children's drawings covered the refrigerator, and family photos lined the mantelpiece. Emily's smile frozen in time. Watching over them, Logan found purpose in his work as a forest ranger, protecting the wilderness he loved while providing a stable life for Mia. His colleagues at the ranger station respected his quiet competence and dedication, though they worried about his isolation. Logan hadn't dated since Emily's death, pouring all his love and attention into raising their daughter and preserving the forested lands under his care. Mia Hartley was her father's daughter in many ways. Inquisitive hazel eyes that missed nothing, a determined chin, and an innate connection to nature. But she had her mother's wild blonde curls and infectious laugh. At 6, she could identify more bird species than most adults, and kept a nature journal filled with pressed leaves and careful crayon drawings of animal tracks. On weekends, she followed Logan through the forest like a shadow, absorbing his knowledge of the wilderness while asking endless questions that sometimes left him struggling for answers. "Daddy, do trees talk to each other?" she'd ask. Or, "Why don't bears get lost without a compass?" Her kindergarten teacher described her as exceptionally observant, a quality that would soon prove more valuable than anyone could have imagined. While Logan and Mia lived their simple life in Pine Ridge, 500 miles away in Boston, Isabel Caraway was making headlines. At 32, she was the youngest CEO of Caraway Financial Group, a multi-billion-dollar investment firm she'd inherited from her adoptive father, William Caraway, 3 years earlier. Business magazines called her the Ice Queen of Wall Street. Brilliant, ruthless, and impossibly elegant, with her sleek dark hair and tailored suits. What those magazines didn't report was how Isabel worked 18-hour days, slept in her office most nights, and anonymously funded shelters for orphan children across the country. They didn't know that the penthouse apartment where she rarely slept contained almost no personal items, just modern furniture straight from a designer showroom and a single photograph of her late adoptive father. No friends' photos, no mementos, no evidence of a life outside Caraway Financial. When Isabel suddenly disappeared during what was supposed to be a site visit to a potential children's shelter location near Pine Ridge Forest, her executive assistant, Robert Lawson, issued a statement suggesting she had been in a hiking accident. Search and rescue teams combed the area for 3 days before the company board reluctantly announced they would continue operations in her absence, with Lawson stepping up as interim CEO. The business world moved on, assuming another privileged executive had met with misfortune during a reckless adventure. No one questioned when the search was called off after just 5 days. No one knew that Robert Lawson had paid 2 men to drug Isabel, place her in a handmade box, and bury her deep in the forest where she would never be found. No one knew that the quiet, determined CEO had discovered financial irregularities in the company's charitable foundation, irregularities that would have sent Lawson to prison for decades. No one, that is, except a forest ranger and his remarkably observant daughter, who happened to be hiking in exactly the right place. Logan drove his old pickup truck down the bumpy Forest Service road, constantly checking the rearview mirror at the woman wrapped in his jacket in the back seat. Mia sat beside her, wide-eyed and solemn, her small hand resting on the stranger's arm. "Is she an angel, Daddy?" Mia whispered. "She's so pretty." The woman was indeed strikingly beautiful. High cheekbones, full lips, and long dark lashes against lightly flushed skin. Her breathing had steadied, but she remained dazed from her ordeal, her eyes occasionally fluttering open to look around in confusion. "She's just a person who needs our help, sweetheart," Logan replied. His first instinct had been to drive straight to the hospital in town. But something made him hesitate. The freshly dug grave, the sealed box. This was no accident. Someone had just tried to murder this woman, and that someone might be watching hospitals. Instead, he headed home, his mind racing through his wilderness first aid training. The cabin was bright, with midday sun when they arrived. Warm and welcoming. Logan helped the woman inside and settled her on the couch, then retrieved the extensive first aid kit he kept for emergencies. Her pulse was steady, and her breathing normal. No obvious injuries except some light bruising on her wrists, likely from restraints before being placed in the box. "Mia, can you get me a glass of water and a clean cloth?" he asked, keeping his voice calm for his daughter's sake. While Mia hurried to help, Logan carefully checked the woman's pockets, looking for identification. He found nothing. No wallet, no phone, not even keys. Just an expensive watch with the inscription, "To Isabel, with all my love, W. Isabel." At least, they had a name. Throughout that afternoon, Logan tended to Isabel as she drifted in and out of consciousness. The trauma of being buried alive, even for the brief time before they found her, had clearly taken its toll. Mia became her self-appointed guardian, reading stories aloud and placing wildflowers on the coffee table beside her. By evening, Isabel was fully awake, sitting up on the couch wrapped in a quilt, her hands clutching a mug of herbal tea. The shock had subsided, replaced by a wary alertness as she studied Logan across the living room. "Thank you," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "For digging me out. For bringing me here, instead of to a hospital." "You remember that?" Logan asked, surprised. She nodded. "I remember everything. Being drugged at my hotel, waking up in that box. The sound of a child's voice. Your hands pulling me out." Her composure slipped slightly. "If you hadn't come along." "But we did," Logan said simply. "How are you feeling?" Like someone who narrowly escaped being buried alive, she replied with unexpected dry humor. Then, more seriously, "I know you have questions. I owe you answers." "You don't owe me anything," Logan countered. "But I do need to know if you're in danger. If my daughter is in danger by having you here." Isabel's gaze shifted to where Mia was drawing at the kitchen table, crayon moving in broad, confident strokes across paper. "Yes," she said quietly. "I believe I am in considerable danger, and I would never forgive myself if that extended to either of you." Before Logan could respond, Mia approached with her drawing, a colorful depiction of 3 stick figures holding hands. "This is us," she announced, handing it to Isabel. "You, me, and Daddy. I made you look happy because you're not in the dirt box anymore." Isabel accepted the drawing, her composed facade cracking as she studied the childish artwork. "Thank you, Mia," she said, her voice thick. "It's beautiful." After Mia was tucked into bed that night with promises that their guest would still be there in the morning, Logan and Isabel sat at the kitchen table, the remnants of a simple dinner between them. "My name is Isabel Caraway," she began without preamble. "I'm the CEO of Caraway Financial Group in Boston." Logan's eyebrows rose. "The investment firm? That's quite a job. My adoptive father built it," she explained. "I inherited it 3 years ago when he died." She traced the rim of her water glass with one finger. "Recently, I discovered discrepancies in our charitable foundation's accounts. Money being diverted to shell companies, fake initiatives, offshore accounts. Nearly $20 million. And you know who's responsible, Logan said. It wasn't a question. Isabelle nodded. Robert Lawson. My executive assistant. My father's protégé. Bitterness crept into her voice. Someone I trusted. Completely. I was gathering evidence, planning to take it to the board next week. He must have found out somehow, and decided murder was easier than prison, Logan concluded grimly. I underestimated him. Isabelle admitted. I never thought he'd go this far. But now... She looked up at Logan, her dark eyes resolute despite her ordeal. Now I have to assume he'll do anything to protect himself. You need to go to the police, Logan insisted. Isabelle shook her head firmly. Not yet. Not without evidence. It would be my word against his, and he has the board's ear now. They already think I'm unstable. Too emotional about the charitable work. Logan studied her, noting the determined set of her jaw, the intelligence in her eyes. This was not a woman accustomed to backing down. So, what's your plan? He asked finally. I need time, she replied. Time to recover. To think clearly. Then, I need to get back to Boston without anyone knowing I'm alive. She hesitated. That's where the real challenge begins. And the child you mentioned? Logan asked. When we found you, you said something about a child who would never know. Isabelle's expression softened. Vulnerability replacing determination. Before all this happened, I was searching for my birth family. I was adopted at 7, and my records were sealed. But I recently discovered I have a younger brother somewhere, given up for adoption after me. If I had died in that box, he would never have known I existed. I would never have found him. Logan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Family is everything, he said simply. Thinking of Mia. Not everyone sees it that way, Isabelle replied with a sad smile. Robert called my search a distraction. He said the company was the only family that mattered. Logan considered their situation, weighing the risks against his instincts. This woman had nearly died today. She needed a safe place to recover, to plan her next move. And, despite the danger, he found himself unable to turn her away. You can stay here while you figure things out, he said finally. It's remote enough that no one will look for you, but we need to be careful for Mia's sake. Relief washed over Isabelle's face. Thank you. I won't stay long, just enough to get my bearings. Neither of them knew then how those few days would stretch into weeks, how their carefully maintained boundaries would slowly dissolve, or how 3 strangers would begin to form bonds stronger than they could have imagined. Days passed peacefully in the cabin as Isabelle regained her strength. She borrowed clothes from Logan, flannel shirts that hung to her knees and had to be rolled up multiple times at the sleeves, and helped around the cabin despite his protests. To Logan's surprise, she knew how to build a fire, cook simple meals, and even identify some of the herbs growing in his garden. My father believed in practical skills, she explained with a shrug when he commented on her unexpected abilities. He may have been a financial titan, but he started as a farm boy from Vermont. He made sure I could survive without servants if needed. Logan noticed other things too, how she flinched at sudden noises, the nightmares that left her gasping for breath in the middle of the night, the way she always positioned herself with her back to a wall and clear sight of all exits. The trauma of her near death was evident beneath her composed exterior. Mia, however, saw none of these shadows. To her, Miss Belle was a fascinating visitor who knew how to braid hair properly, unlike her father's clumsy attempts, and listened to her stories with genuine interest. One evening, Logan found them sitting on the porch swing. Mia nestled against Isabelle's side as they watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. She's not Belle from Beauty and the Beast, Logan teased as he tucked Mia into bed later. Even if she does have the same name. Mia yawned sleepily. I know, Daddy. But she's nice like Belle. And pretty. And she makes you smile more. Logan froze in the act of straightening her blanket. What do you mean? You don't look sad when she's here, Mia explained simply, then closed her eyes and was asleep within seconds. That night, Logan couldn't sleep. His mind troubled by his daughter's observation and the growing complication of the woman sleeping in his guest room. Isabel had been with them for nearly 2 weeks, and he still had no clear idea of her plan or when she intended to leave. More concerning was his own reluctance to see her go, a feeling he wasn't prepared to examine too closely. The next morning, while Isabel and Mia collected wildflowers in the meadow behind the cabin, Logan finally searched her name online, wanting to know exactly who he was harboring. His screen immediately filled with headlines. Billionaire heiress Isabel Caraway still missing after 2 weeks. Search for Caraway financial CEO abandoned. Robert Lawson steps in as interim CEO of CFG. Logan stared at the professional portrait accompanying the articles. Isabel Caraway in a tailored navy suit, her dark hair swept into an elegant updo. Expression confident but remote. It was undoubtedly the same woman who had spent the morning laughing with his daughter as they gathered flowers in mismatched bowls. When Mia came in for lunch, leaving Isabel to arrange their collection in a mason jar, Logan showed his daughter the tablet. "Mia, is this Miss Belle?" he asked quietly. Mia barely glanced at the screen before nodding. "Uh-huh. But she looks happier now. Can I have peanut butter on my sandwich?" Logan made lunch mechanically, his mind racing. He'd been harboring one of the wealthiest women in America. A woman who'd supposedly disappeared in a hiking accident, according to news reports. By helping her, had he put himself and Mia in danger? When Isabel entered the kitchen, her hands full of wildflowers and a content smile on her face, Logan slid the tablet across the table toward her. "Isabel Caraway," he said flatly. "CEO of Caraway Financial Group. Reported missing over 2 weeks ago, during a hiking trip near Pine Ridge." The flowers slipped from her hands, scattering across the table like colorful stars. Isabel stared at her own image on the screen, her face paling. "You looked me up," she whispered. "I should have done it sooner," Logan replied, keeping his voice low as Mia ate her sandwich, oblivious to the tension. "Why didn't you tell me exactly who you are? Would it have made a difference?" Isabel asked, genuinely curious. "Would you have treated me differently if you'd known I was worth billions on paper?" The question caught Logan off guard. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe." Isabel nodded as if he'd confirmed something important. "That's why I didn't say more. For a few weeks, I wanted to be just Isabel, not the Ice Queen, not the orphan heiress, not the target." She met his eyes. Just a person. Logan felt his anger softening despite himself. "I understand that. But Mia and I are involved now. I need to know everything. About the danger. About your plans." "That's fair," Isabel conceded. She glanced at Mia, then back to Logan. "Tonight, after she's asleep, I'll tell you everything I know." That night, after Mia was asleep, Logan confronted Isabel on the porch. The half-moon cast silver light across the clearing, and somewhere in the distance, an owl called. "It's time for the whole truth," he said, without preamble. "No more edited versions." Isabel nodded, her face shadowed. "I've told you most of it already. About Robert. About the missing funds. What I didn't explain is why I've been staying here. Why I haven't contacted the authorities." She took a deep breath. "I needed time to create a plan that wouldn't just expose Robert's crimes, but would protect the Foundation's work." "And have you?" Logan asked. "Created this plan?" "Yes," she replied, determination hardening her voice. "I've been in contact with an investigative reporter named Jacob Ellis. He's been looking into corporate corruption for years. I reached out to him before everything happened." "You have a phone?" Logan asked sharply, alarmed by the security implications. "A burner phone," Isabel clarified. "I bought it in town last week when you took me to get supplies. Jacob is the only person who knows I'm alive." "And you trust him?" "As much as I trust anyone in my world," Isabel replied with a hint of sadness. "Which isn't saying much. But his reputation is built on exposing the truth, no matter who it hurts." Logan was silent for a long moment. torn between the rational decision to distance himself from this dangerous situation and the growing certainty that he couldn't let Isabel face it alone. "What's your plan?" he finally asked. Hope flickered across Isabel's face as she realized he wasn't asking her to leave. Jacob has been building a case against Robert. Financial records, witness statements, board meeting minutes. What he needs is proof that Robert was behind my attempted murder. Without that, it's just embezzlement. And how do you plan to get that proof? By confronting him directly, Isabel said calmly. While wearing a recording device, Logan stared at her, incredulous. That's insane. The man already tried to kill you once. In a corporate office, surrounded by security cameras and witnesses, he won't try again, she reasoned. Especially if he believes I have evidence already stored somewhere safe. It's too dangerous, Logan insisted. Isabel's expression softened as she reached out to touch his arm. Logan, I appreciate your concern. More than I can say. But this is my fight. You don't have to do it alone, he said, the words escaping before he could consider their implications. Surprise and something more complex flickered in Isabel's eyes. What are you suggesting? I'll go with you, Logan said decisively. I know how to move without being seen. I can be your backup. What about Mia? My sister can watch her for a few days, Logan said, though the thought of leaving his daughter made his chest tighten. She's been begging for Mia to visit anyway. Isabel studied him in the moonlight. A mixture of gratitude and concern on her face. Why would you risk so much for someone you barely know? Logan considered the question, searching for an answer that wouldn't reveal too much of his confused emotions. Because it's the right thing to do, he said finally. And because Mia would never forgive me if I let anything happen to her, Miss Belle. 3 days later, disguised with hair dyed blonde and cut short, wearing clothes borrowed from Logan's sister Kate, Isabel sat beside Logan in his truck as they drove toward Boston. In the back seat was a duffel bag containing recording equipment provided by Jacob Ellis and a burner phone programmed with his number. Are you sure you're ready for this? Logan asked, as the city skyline appeared on the horizon. Glass towers gleaming in the afternoon Sunday. Isabella took a deep breath. No, she admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. Their plan was straightforward but risky. Isabel would use her knowledge of Caraway Financial's security protocols to access the building after hours. Logan would monitor from a car outside, staying in contact via the burner phones. Jacob Ellis would be standing by to publish whatever evidence they found immediately, ensuring Robert couldn't bury it. What they didn't expect was to find Robert Lawson still in the office at 10 o'clock that night, working late in what had been Isabel's corner office. Through the glass walls, they could see him at her desk, poring over documents. Change of plan. Isabel whispered into the phone to Logan. He's here. I'm going to confront him directly. Isabel. No, Logan hissed. That's not the plan. But she had already hung up and was striding toward the office door, the recording device in her pocket activated. Logan cursed under his breath and left the car, sprinting toward the building's entrance. When Robert Lawson looked up to see Isabel Caraway, supposedly dead for weeks, standing in the doorway, the color drained from his face as though he'd seen a ghost. Hello, Robert, Isabel said calmly. Surprised to see me? Isabel, he gasped, standing so abruptly that the chair rolled back and hit the window. You're alive. Thank God. We've been searching. Save it. She cut him off, closing the door behind her. We both know exactly where I've been. In a wooden box in Pine Ridge Forest, where your men put me. Robert's expression shifted, calculation replacing shock. You're not well, Isabel. The stress of your position, the accident. You're confused. Let me call a doctor. The only person who needs a doctor is you, Robert, for your conscience. She moved closer, her voice hardening. I know about the money you've been siphoning from the foundation. $23 million, laundered through fake charities and offshore accounts. A muscle twitched in Robert's jaw. You can't prove anything. I already have. Isabel nodded toward the documents on the desk. I was compiling evidence. For weeks. Before you tried to kill me. And now, Everything you're saying is being recorded. Robert's eyes darted to the door, gauging the distance. No one will believe you. You disappeared. Had some kind of breakdown. The board trusts me now. Then why did you need me dead? Isabel pressed. If everything was above board, why not just discredit me? Why bury me alive in the woods? Because you wouldn't stop, Robert suddenly shouted, his composure cracking. The foundation was my project from the beginning. Your father promised me control. But you took everything. Then you had to start digging into the finances, threatening to expose years of work. Work? Isabel echoed incredulously. You call stealing from orphan children work? I call building a financial empire work, Robert snarled. The charity was always a tax shelter, a publicity stunt. William knew that. He just didn't know the details. My father would never have approved of stealing, Isabel said, her voice shaking with rage. Robert laughed, a cold sound devoid of humor. Your father? He wasn't even your real father, Isabel. Just an old man with a savior complex who plucked you from obscurity. You were a project to him, just like those other orphans. Something in Isabel snapped. Is that why you buried me alive? So I would suffer? So I would know what it was like to be forgotten again? Robert's face twisted with malice. I wanted you to have time to think about how badly you'd miscalculated. William always said you were too emotional, too focused on finding your real family, instead of the one he gave you. His voice turned mocking. Poor little orphan Isabel, still searching for mommy and that baby brother she'll never meet. Isabel froze. How do you know about my brother? A smug smile spread across Robert's face. William kept a file on your birth family. He thought knowing would distract you from the business. Where is it? Isabel demanded. Destroyed. Along with you. Or so I thought. Robert lunged suddenly, grabbing a heavy crystal award from the desk and swinging it toward Isabel's head. The door burst open as Logan tackled Robert from behind, sending both men crashing into the desk. The award fell from Robert's hand, shattering on the floor as they struggled. Despite Logan's superior strength, Robert fought with desperate fury until security guards, alerted by the commotion, rushed in and separated them. Arrest him, Robert shouted, straightening his tie with trembling hands. This man attacked me. This man, Isabel said clearly, just stopped you from assaulting me a second time, after your failed attempt to murder me 3 weeks ago. She removed the recording device from her pocket. I have your confession right here, Robert. It's over. The security guards looked between them, confusion evident until Jacob Ellis stepped in, press credentials visible. I've already sent the audio to the police, the journalist announced. They're on their way, and this story is going live in 5 minutes. As Robert was led away in handcuffs an hour later, Isabel turned to Logan, exhaustion and relief washing over her face. You saved me. Again, she said softly. Logan shook his head. You saved yourself. I just provided backup. Jacob Ellis approached them, notepad in hand. Miss Carraway, I need a statement for the article. Isabel glanced at Logan, then back to the reporter. Just say that justice was served, thanks to an observant child who heard what no one else could hear, and a father brave enough to dig deeper. After giving their statements to the police, Logan and Isabel sat in a 24-hour diner, cups of coffee growing cold between them as dawn broke over the city. What will you do now? Logan asked. Go back to running your company? Isabel stared out the window at the city awakening, so different from the peaceful forest mornings she'd grown accustomed to. Yes, but differently. The foundation needs rebuilding. The company needs restructuring. She turned to face him. But first, I need to find my brother. Logan nodded, feeling a strange heaviness in his chest. Their extraordinary time together was coming to an end. I should get back to Mia. She'll be wondering where I am. Of course, Isabel said quickly, a shadow passing over her face. Logan, I don't know how to thank you and Mia. If there's anything I can ever do, we'll be fine, he interrupted gently. That's just what anyone would do. No, Isabel shook her head. It's not what anyone would do. Most people would have called the authorities immediately. Or worse, left me there. She reached across the table, hesitating before placing her hand over his. "You gave me safety when I had nothing. You believed me when you had every reason to doubt." Logan turned his hand to clasp hers briefly before pulling away. "Goodbye, Isabel. I hope you find your brother." "Goodbye, Logan," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tell Mia. Tell her Belle says thank you for hearing me." Logan returned to Pine Ridge, to his cabin and his daughter, to the familiar rhythm of his life as a forest ranger. Summer faded into fall, and fall began its transition to winter. The leaves changed and fell, blanketing the forest floor in gold and russet. Mia started first grade, making new friends, but still asking occasionally about Miss Belle. "Is she happy now, Daddy? Did she find the person she was looking for?" "I hope so, sweetheart," Logan would answer, scanning the news for glimpses of Isabel Caraway rebuilding her company, testifying against Robert Lawson, establishing new charitable initiatives. Her life seemed a world away from their simple existence in the woods. Then, on a crisp November morning, Logan was making coffee when Mia called from the living room. "Daddy, Miss Belle is on TV." Logan entered to find Mia sitting cross-legged before the rarely used television, pointing excitedly at the screen where Isabel was being interviewed on a national morning show. She looked different, more polished in a tailored red dress, her dark hair longer and elegantly styled, but her eyes were the same. "Miss Caraway, your story has captivated the nation," the interviewer was saying. "Buried alive, rescued by strangers, bringing your would-be murderer to justice. Hollywood is already calling. What message do you want people to take from your experience?" Isabel smiled, but Logan could see the tension behind it, the careful consideration of her words. "That even in our darkest moments, there's hope. I was literally buried, left to die alone, when a little girl heard me knocking. She and her father dug with their bare hands to save a stranger." The forest ranger and his daughter, the interviewer, nodded. The unsung heroes who disappeared back into anonymity after the rescue. Something shifted in Isabel's expression. A softening, a vulnerability, rarely seen in public figures. "They taught me something precious. That family isn't just about blood or business legacies. It's about who digs you out when you're buried. Who hears you when no one else is listening." She looked directly into the camera then, as if she could see through it to their small cabin. "I owe them everything. My life, yes, but more than that. I owe them the understanding of what truly matters." "And what's that?" the interviewer prompted. "Connection," Isabel said simply. "Love without agenda. The courage to rebuild." She paused. "I came back to the business world, not for power or wealth, but because I have a purpose now. To find my biological brother, yes, but also to create something meaningful with this second chance." Mia turned to Logan, her eyes shining. "She remembers us, Daddy." "Of course she does, sweetheart," Logan murmured, his throat unexpectedly tight. "Can we go see her?" Mia asked. "Just to say hello? I miss her stories." Logan looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then back at the screen where Isabel continued speaking, her words measured but her eyes revealing the emotion beneath. He thought of the quiet evenings on the porch, of Isabel teaching Mia to identify constellations, of the way she'd slowly come alive in their simple home. "Maybe someday," he answered noncommittally. That someday came sooner than expected. 6 months after Robert Lawson's conviction, Logan stood at the back of a courtroom in Boston. Mia's small hand clasped in his. They had come at Mia's persistent urging to witness the final resolution of the case. Isabel's formal reinstatement as CEO and the court's approval of her restructuring plan for the charitable foundation. They hadn't told Isabel they were coming. Logan wasn't even sure why he'd agreed to make the journey, except that Mia had worn him down with her relentless questions and obvious longing to see her friend again. When Isabel entered the courtroom, heads turned. She wore a simple navy suit, her dark hair pulled back, her posture straight and confident. She didn't see them at first, focused on the proceedings, answering questions from the judge with clear, precise responses. It was only when the judge declared the matter closed and congratulated her on rebuilding her company's integrity that Isabel glanced around the courtroom and froze, her eyes locking with Logan's. For a moment, neither moved. Then Mia broke free from Logan's grasp and ran down the aisle, propriety forgotten. "Miss Belle!" she cried, flinging herself at Isabel, who knelt instinctively to catch her. "Mia," Isabel breathed, wrapping her arms around the child. "Oh, my goodness. Look how you've grown." Logan approached more slowly, acutely aware of the curious stares from the corporate executives and lawyers filling the room. "Sorry about that," he said, reaching them. "She's been asking to see you for months." Isabel stood, keeping one hand on Mia's shoulder, her eyes never leaving Logan's face. "Don't apologize. This is the best surprise I could have imagined." Her voice softened. "I've thought about you both. Every day." Later, in a quiet corner of a nearby park, Mia chased squirrels while Logan and Isabel sat on a bench, the awkwardness of their unexpected reunion gradually easing. "I found him," Isabel said after a comfortable silence. "My brother." Logan turned to her, genuinely pleased. "That's wonderful. Where? How?" "He was in the system, just like I was. But he was adopted by a family in Seattle." Her eyes followed Mia's movements across the grass. "He's 17 now. His name is Ethan. He plays soccer and wants to be an engineer." "Have you met him?" Logan asked. Isabel nodded, a smile illuminating her face. "Last month. It was overwhelming. Looking at someone with my eyes, my mother's chin." She laughed softly. "He thought it was cool to suddenly have a billionaire sister." "I'm happy for you," Logan said. "And meant it. You found what you were looking for." Isabel was quiet for a moment. "Part of it," she finally said. "But I realized something during these months of rebuilding my life." She turned to face him directly. "The time I spent in your cabin with you and Mia, even with the trauma and the fear, I felt more at home there than I ever have in my penthouse or my corner office." Logan didn't know how to respond, caught off guard by her candor and the sudden intensity in her dark eyes. "I miss the simplicity," she continued. "The authenticity. I miss Mia's stories and your quiet strength. I miss feeling like I belong somewhere, not because of what I own or who I am, but just because." Isabel Logan began, not sure what he wanted to say. "Could you?" she interrupted, then hesitated. "Could you give me a chance to be part of your lives again? Not as the woman you rescued, but as me." Just Isabel. Before Logan could answer, Mia ran back to them, cheeks flushed with exertion. "Daddy, can Miss Belle come see our new treehouse? Please?" The hope in both their faces, so different yet somehow united in this moment of expectation, struck Logan deeply. He thought of the lonely months since Isabel had left, the way the cabin had seemed emptier, how often he'd found himself looking toward the forest, remembering the extraordinary circumstances that had brought this remarkable woman into their lives. "I think," he said slowly, a smile starting to form, "that's a very good idea." The year that followed transformed all their lives. Isabel stepped back from day-to-day operations at Caraway Financial, appointing a trusted team while maintaining oversight of the charitable foundation. She purchased a modest house on the edge of Pine Ridge, close enough to Logan's cabin for daily visits, but maintaining the independence they all needed. With her resources, she established a wilderness education center where Logan now worked, teaching children about conservation and outdoor skills. Mia flourished with Isabel's influence, developing an interest in both nature and mathematics that suggested a bright future. On weekends, Isabel's brother Ethan sometimes visited, bringing an easy teenage energy to their gatherings. Logan watched as Isabel built the family connections she'd been denied for so long, filling her life with the authentic relationships she had craved. What began as friendship between Logan and Isabel deepened gradually, neither rushing the natural evolution of their feelings. They had both experienced profound loss, both built walls to protect themselves, but the extraordinary circumstances of their meeting had created an unshakable foundation of trust. 1 year to the day after Logan had pulled Isabel from the earth, they stood together at that very spot in the forest. Mia had helped them mark it with a circle of white stones months ago, transforming a place of horror into something meaningful. "It's strange," Isabel said, looking down at the stone circle. I should hate this place. It should represent the worst moment of my life. But it doesn't? Logan asked, standing close beside her. She shook her head. It represents rebirth to me now. The place where my new life began. She turned to face him, taking both his hands in hers. Where I found my way home. Logan's heart raced as Isabel slowly knelt before him, reversing the traditional proposal roles in a way that perfectly reflected her independent spirit. I don't have flowers or a wedding dress, she said, her voice steady despite the tears shining in her eyes. Just gratitude and love. Logan Hartley. You dug me out of the darkest place imaginable. You gave me safety when I had nothing. You showed me what family truly means. She squeezed his hands. Will you let me spend the rest of my life returning those gifts? Logan pulled her to her feet, cradling her face in his calloused hands. You saved me first, he whispered. Not the other way around. From her hiding place behind a nearby tree, Mia giggled and emerged with a handful of wildflowers she'd been secretly collecting. Can I be the flower girl? She asked, already certain of the answer. The wedding took place in the forest, clearing near Logan's cabin, with no media, no corporate associates, only the family they had built together. Mia scattered wildflower petals along a path of fallen pine needles. Ethan, now part of their unconventional family, stood proudly as Logan's best man. Isabel wore a simple white dress, barefoot in the grass as she walked toward Logan. No veil covered her face. No elaborate train followed behind her. Just a woman walking freely toward the future she had chosen. As they exchanged vows beneath the canopy of trees that had once hidden darkness, but now filtered golden light onto their gathering, Logan thought about the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. From a desperate knocking beneath the earth to this moment of perfect joy. The place that had been meant as Isabel's grave had become, instead, the foundation of their life together. A reminder that even from the darkest depths, it was possible to rise, to breathe again, to find unexpected love, and somewhere in the forest around them, if one listened closely enough. The whisper of the wind through the pines sounded almost like gratitude.